It's Beer O'Clock and it's Beer O'Clock Show Revisited, where we look back at a beer that we reviewed way back in the early days of the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark, and joining me is my beer buddy, then and now, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing alright, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Very good. This Revisited, we are revisiting a beer that we did way back in Season 1, practically 3 years ago. So we're recording this
pretty much
mid-September. We released the episode 6 on September 7th, 2012. So this is like proper early days when we were proper new to everything. It's an IPA, a style that, we would go on to define much of what we do on the show. But it's Fuller's Bengal Lancer.
Much of what we do, or everything about me.
Everything about you. I was trying to be democratic. Bengal Lancer, which I can't remember much of what we did about this, but it does seem like just yesterday that we reviewed this beer. I remember us sitting down and reviewing this.
I do. It's one of those ones that sticks in the mind because I distinctly remember there was a flavour in there that neither of us could describe what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember spending a large part of that episode just sitting here going, what is that? What is that taste? They cannot pick that up. And I remember tweeting Fuller's and them ignoring us way back then, and not telling us. So I'm hoping that now, as we revisit this with our more refined palates, mate, we'll absolutely nail those flavours in this beer.
Indeedy, and I remember thinking this was very exotic because it had a whole story behind it as far as why it's called Bengal Lancer. And I actually did I think it was my first back of the label research, this one.
It was, and I think it was your last as well, wasn't it?
No, I do that all the time. That's the extent of my research. Also, the first Fuller's beer, and maybe the last until we did our little interview special.
Fuller's aren't a brewery that we've featured a lot.
No.
Mainly because we did the lion's share of their beers in one go when we interviewed John Keelan.
We did.
There's not really anything left for us to review.
Anyway, this week, Bengal Lancer IPA. It is a 5.3% beer, bottle conditioned. Let's get into it, mate.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one.
Me too.
Okay, now something must be off with my memory because I distinctly remember a darker beer than this.
Yep.
Unless they've changed the recipe. I mean, that's come out amber, almost sort of like a light orange, well, sort of like a dark, an orange colour to it. I'm sure it was darker than that when we first tried it.
Oh, yeah, I remember it being quite dark.
On the nose, there's a little bit of pine, there's a little bit of caramel in there. Maybe some woody aromas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lovely looking beer. It's a nice fluffy white head.
There's light carbonation.
Yeah, decent carbonation in there. Looks and smells really inviting, mate.
Yeah, it looks pretty good for a bottle conditioned beer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So let's get into it, buddy.
Let's do it. Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Wow. I've got to say, and I will openly say this. This is the first time I've drunk Bengal Lancer since the last time I drank Bengal Lancer, which was the last time we reviewed it on the show back in September 2012, whenever it was.
Yeah.
But that is a damn tasty beer.
That is, it is. It's really nice, really light on the palate, but with this, I don't know what it is, but this particular note of flavour on the very tip of the palate, on the top of my palate. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to pick it out.
It's a little bit biscuity, a little bit caramelly. There's a little bit of burnt toast in there, which I seem to remember was something I said a lot in season 1. I always said that things tasted like burnt toast.
Yes.
But yeah, it's certainly and again for an IPA, this is more your traditional English style IPA, so it's not a great big American hop bomb. That the malts and the hops are working in harmony to give you a much fuller flavour, a much more rounded flavour. But yeah, it's kind of that biscuity, malty characteristics that are winning through, and then you just almost get a hint of ever such a slight hint of citrus right on the very end of the finish.
Yes, very lightly floral as well, but there's just like a layer of sweetness that comes over the toastiness that kind of lifts it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised at how light it is on the malt. There's definitely malt there, but it's not this thick crust you're having to work through that some of the beers that we were doing at the time. It's also not overpoweringly floral like some of the other beers that we did before this, namely that IPA that we don't talk about anymore.
Wouldn't say whether that was floral or just like eating a mouthful of leaves or drinking a mouthful of leaves. I tell you what, I think people overlook Fuller's because they're like, oh, traditional English brewery, big regional brewery, know exactly what we're going to get from them, blah, same old, same old. But this is absolutely stunning, and I just think it's a shame that you don't ever tend to see this on a Fuller's bar.
Yeah.
You can walk into a Fuller's pub and they'll have it bottled in the fridge, but I can imagine this on cask being absolutely stunning because it would just soften those flavours a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It would smooth the whole thing out, and it'd be a beer that you'd sit there, and you would literally sink pint after pint of it. Because it's at what 5.3% as well, so it's a fairly low ABV compared to what we now drink on the show these days, and it's just a really enjoyable beer.
Yeah, and I can imagine if they took this exact same beer and put a little bit of Cascade in it, you would have a lot of craft heads going on about how great this low ABV beer is with these amazing flavours. You know, it's that far, just a smidge away from being a beer that would be accepted by the craft Illuminati.
Yeah.
It is so well done. It's such, you know, I quite like a lot of Fuller's beers, and this is a perfect example of. You talk about craft, but you know they've kind of perfected that craft of putting out these consistent, really well balanced beers, haven't they?
Absolutely, and I think this is a demonstration of that because I think if you was to listen back to the first time we reviewed this, we probably sung its praises then, and here we are again singing its praises, and I think we're able to actually pull out those flavours this time as well, which is what all about what Revisited has been for us. It's been as much of a journey for us to go on as well as hopefully the listeners have come along with us in enjoying us go back and do some of these beers where maybe the first time we did them we possibly didn't really have much of a clue as to what we were talking about.
Yeah. So just taking a few more mouthfuls and kind of letting it rest and evaporate off my palate, I'm getting that toast crust bedding with kind of like a dark orange hints over the top of it, and just a peak of sweetness as well, just to kind of top it off, but not overbearingly so. A lovely meshing of flavours, really, for what is, you know, it's not targeted at the craft scene at all. It is just them trying to do their version of an IPA.
And I think I'm probably right in saying that this is the only IPA that Fuller's do as in their range as well. I don't think there's another IPA in their range.
Not that I know of, no.
So you know, and the fact that what they've done is they've produced a traditional English IPA here. I think you're right. You know, if you're listening to this and you're turning your nose up and you're going, oh well, it's Fuller's. Listen, seriously, get yourself down to Waitrose or something. Or I think Sainsbury's stock this as well.
Yeah, like £1.50.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Grab yourself a bottle of Bengal Lancer, and have a really enjoyable evening with a solid. And this is coming from me, the IPA hophead, but this is an absolute solid IPA, and it's one that I am certainly going to find myself drinking more of. I think.
And as with all these revisited shows, we paid for these beers ourselves, so we've got nothing to gain otherwise.
Absolutely not. No,
it's a great beer. I'm really pleased that we revisited this one, mate. Nice work.
Me too. I'm glad we did it in the first place so that we could revisit it 3 years on.
Well, we were very limited on what we both could get in the supermarket way back in season 1. So,
oh, how things change.
oh yes. I'm going to pour the rest of mine out while we say goodbye. Thanks again, mate.
Cheers. It's been a really enjoyable trip down memory lane, this one.
Indeed. Cheers. Bye-bye.